They say defense wins championships, and this is going to be no different for this year. With some of the best defensive prospects going into the 2024 college football season coming from the SEC, it's time to go over my picks for the top 10 best defensive players in the 2024 season. Want to give a good shout out to our good friends over at RHOBACK for sponsoring this video. Go on over to RHOBACK.com. Get yourself 20% off your first purchase on all polos, on all hoodies, shorts, for the best fit and the best feel. That's code SECU. Get yourself 20% off your first purchase over at RHOBACK.com. My name is Lucas Hill, ladies and gentlemen. You can follow me over on X at Lucas_Hill23. Please make sure you give the video a like, subscribe, and a comment as well. Helps us break the algorithm. Want to thank you all for 10,000 subscribers on the SEC Unfiltered YouTube channel. Follow us, so not just on YouTube, but also on X, Instagram, Facebook, as well as TikTok. So with that being said, let's go over our top 10 defensive players in the SEC. And at number 10, I got to go Smael Mondon Jr. Now, last year, this is a guy that struggled with injury near the end of the year, had a stress fracture, unsure where, but had to deal with injuries, but still finished second on the team in tackles with 67, was a second team all SEC. This is a guy that's going to be a leader for this Georgia defense. He's been led by some big-time recruits that have come in that have given him a lot of motivation to compete for a starting position. Even though he couldn't participate in spring practice this year, you can expect going into the offseason and continuing on through summer workouts, this guy is going to get better. He's going to get faster, and he's going to become one of the best inside linebackers in the SEC as well. When you watch him play, big-time downhill backer is a very good field general on the field, and he's going to make himself known as a leader whenever he first steps out onto the field for the Bulldogs. And at number 9, I got Jamon Dumas-Johnson. This guy probably might be the most underrated player in the SEC on the defensive side of the ball. Now, it wasn't but 2 years ago. This guy was an All-American at Georgia. Led the team in tackles, was an efficient pass rusher as well. But there were problems as well. Last year, her ended off with an injury, led to the rise of guys like E.J. Lightsley and Xavier Sorsey. Now, and during that span, Georgia never lost a game, but he ended up injuring his forearm, ended his season during that time. Obviously, the guy that started above him, C.J. Allen, who ended up performing well, was a 2-time SEC Freshman of the Week, finished off with 24 tackles as well to go along with a sack and showed out in the Orange Bowl as well for Dumas-Johnson. So whenever that happened, I think he figured that it was time to just hit the portal, go to a better defensive scheme, and he's in a good one with Kentucky. I'm telling you this, Kentucky might have gotten their best linebacker since Josh Allen was there. When you look at how he plays, there's a lot of Josh Allen in him. I think he has that ability to be a pass rusher as well as when you look at the inside linebacker class at Georgia. Justin Williams was the number 1 ranked backer in the class of 2024. Not only allowing him, but guys that include Chris Cole, who is the number 3 backer in the 24 class. There's a lot of story that surrounds him, but I think Dumas-Johnson is going to really improve, not just in his backer play, but also when it comes to pass rushing, along with a lot of different other things. So let's go on ahead and go on to number 8, and I got Michael Williams. Now, last year, he said that he did not have a fantastic year. This is a guy that was playing more of a defensive end, more of a 4-tech defensive end position. doesn't have the size for it. But whenever he moved to outside backer going into the Orange Bowl, he had his best game of the season. Ended up with a sack, a TFL, and 4 tackles, that I believe. Was dominant during the game. And so going into this year, there's a lot of big expectations for him. And it seems like that there's a lot of pressure on him as well. Doesn't seem like he had been living up to the hype that people expected him to be, despite the stats he's putting up. There is a lot that he can do that's not what Michael Williams was recruited to do. You know, I think whenever you see him play, I think that you get a guy that is as advertised. You're getting an elite pass rusher, a guy that can really play that outside backer position well, efficient in the run game, efficient whenever it comes to getting up his ball get off, really fast off the ball. It's almost like when the ball is snapped and whenever he takes his first step, it's almost in simultaneous motion because he's so quick off the football. And I think that when he brings that to the table, you can expect a lot of outside offensive tackles to really try to get their feet set up as fast as possible. But when he does that, he just always has a counter off of every move. Number 7, I have Landon Jackson. Landon Jackson, to me, whenever he first came to LSU, he was a guy that really should have been playing. Had 45 sacks coming out of Pleasant Grove High School. Didn't play at all. Decided to transfer to Arkansas. And this guy was decided to become a beast. And was unbelievable during his 2 years. Last year, had 6.5 sacks, 44 tackles, 13.5 TFLs. First team all SEC. This guy might be another one of those underrated defensive players going into the season as well. When I watch Landon Jackson, I see a guy that he's 6'7", 281. He can play at any position on the defensive line. He can be in a stand-up outside tech for a 3. He can play inside. He can play inside, lined up on the guard or outside the guard shade. This is a guy that has all the intangibles possible to be a future superstar in the NFL. I really do see that whenever I watch him play. I watch his ball get off and his ability to read plays. He's efficient in the screen game. Whenever you try and throw a screen his way, he can sniff it out just like that, and he's there for a TFL every single time. And don't even get me started on his pass rush. He counters off of every move. He's always using his hands. If you're a young defensive end, I'd be watching number 40 in the red and white for the Arkansas Razorbacks. At number 6, Nazir Stackhouse. He's next in line. First it was Jordan Davis. I see a lot of that in him. I really do see a lot of Jordan Davis in Nazir Stackhouse. I see how dominant this guy is. I see how he has performed over the last 3 years, and I knew he was a guy to look out for. I thought he was going to go to the draft last year. I thought that he was going to forget his senior year and go to the draft, but he wants another title. He wants to leave with 3 rings. I can respect that. I love a guy that's wanting to compete for that. And I have no problem with that whatsoever. You know, he started alongside Jalen Carter. So he's learned from a dominant defensive lineman. And the thing about Stackhouse is he's around the same size and weight as Carter. Both of them are 6'3". Both are around 320 pounds. And both can make a significant impact anywhere on the defensive tackle position. You can line them up at nose, line them up in a 3 tech. You can even place them on the outside shade of that offensive tackle as well. So I do see a lot of Jalen Carter in him, and I think he too will be a first-round pick come next year. At number 5, I got Princely Umanala. excuse me if I mispronounce his name, Princely Umanmielen. Now, this guy is just a stud. When you watched him at Florida, going into last year's draft, late second round pick, finished with 39 tackles, 9.5 for a loss, 4.5 sacks, 6'5", 255, great pass rushers, very quick off the ball. And there's nothing more than just how dominant this guy can be at the defensive end position. The way that he plays is like watching magic happen sometimes. He did perform very well against a Florida State offensive line that didn't do terrible this past year. Played against a very good LSU offensive line that he was consistently pressuring Jaden Daniels and forcing him out of the pocket. Now, the biggest thing that he needs to work on is quarterback depth, because despite the speed that he has, when he goes up against a Jaden Daniels or anybody else that's in the NFL, if he doesn't maintain QB depth, he's going to end up getting beat. And that's what Jaden did multiple times during the season, is that he would see that outside defensive end lose contain and overrush him, and all he would do is just step up in the pocket and then go. With Ole Miss's new defensive line coach, he's going to get the proper training, along with another guy we're going to mention alongside, that can help disrupt every quarterback that tries to maintain that leverage and try to escape outside the pocket. At number 4, I got Harold Perkins. Last year was an underwhelming season for him, especially in a defense that was god-awful for him. The biggest thing that he needs to improve on is his run defense, because whenever you see counter or trap run his way, a pulling guard or an outside tackle is going to body him every single time they decide to run his way. There's no way that he can guard against that. But I think if he consistently improves on where he is at and continues to make the necessary adjustments, because he's going to be playing inside backer this year. There is a lot of skepticism with it, but what they're going to have him do, you're going to see him blitz a lot. When you look at him at that inside backer position, he's probably going to play him a lot like how Lawrence Taylor was played. Now, Lawrence Taylor was an outside backer, but at the same time, you saw him play a lot on the inside. You're going to see him blitz, big gap. He's going to be leading this defense along with Greg Penn, both on the inside, and really dominate that outside secondary. And there's nothing that a whole lot of offense can do about it. Because to me, Harold Perkins is is probably the most dominant defensive player in all of college football. The only problem is he has to be with the right system. If he can improve in the run game, and if he can adjust being back at that inside backer position, he's going to have a fantastic season this year. At number 3, I got Walter Nolan. I already mentioned his counterpart, Princely Umanmielen, on the outside. Walter Nolan is probably the most dominant defensive lineman in all of college football. But he's only number 3 on this list, and you'll see why at number 1. Walter Nolan is a man amongst boys. He's been like that ever since he first stepped foot at Texas A&M in College Station. He was the number 1 overall player in the class of 2022. Had a great sophomore year. 4 sacks, 37 tackles, 8.5 tackles for loss, 2 years of eligibility. I think this upcoming year will be a better one for him, because when Ole Miss got him, despite losing all the Quinshon Judkins and everybody else that decided to leave, Oxford, you're getting a guy that is so dominant, is so good that he can dominate any position. Nose tackle, he's hard to guard. His ball get off is unbelievable. I watch him and he's just so powerful. And when you do have good ball get off, whether you're a center or guard, you're going to get knocked back on your feet because he executes so well. He has good hand replacement whenever you try to swipe his hands away from you. He has fantastic pass rush ability. Run wise, this guy can bully any offensive lineman on the field. And that's what makes him so dominant. And that's why he will be a first round draft pick next year and in a perfect system with Ole Miss. At number 2, Malachi Starks. This is an All-American that could be a top 10 pick next year. And the thing about it is, he's not getting talked about a whole lot because of the recruiting class that Georgia brings back. Despite you bringing back an All-American, you're still having a lot of questions in your secondary. Yes, you bring in Ellis Robinson. There's quite a bit of questions around him, but there's no question in my mind that Starks is the unheralded leader of this crew. Kirby Smart has already stated about what he feels about him. Despite the injury bug that he may be facing right now with his shoulder, this is not going to affect him whatsoever. You're going to have to he's got to replace Tyke Smith and Javon Bullard, 2 guys that were all SEC guys. Malachi Starks is about to be that leader for Georgia. I mean, when you're an All-American, you don't get 52 tackles, 3 interceptions, and 7 pass breakups. When you get him over the top, excellent in coverage, very instinctive on the ball. Travaris Robinson is going to have a field day with a guy like him. He's going to have so much fun utilizing Starks when it comes to blitzing, when it comes to pass, when it comes to open field tackling. Starks can do all of it. So there is a lot that he still needs to work on, especially when it comes to his footwork and especially with him staying healthy. But there's no question in my mind, Starks may be one of the best defensive backs in all of college football. And at number 1, it's a no-brainer for me. You can check out my video that I posted about him at SEC Unfiltered's YouTube. You can check it out there. I've already talked about number 1, James Pierce. To me, he is the best player in all of college football. He will probably be a number 1 draft pick next year. There's a lot of people that have labeled him as the number 1 draft prospect in all of college football. Some of them even have him going number 1 next year. When you watch his film, a lot of NFL scouts get really excited when they watch a guy like him. His mixture of speed, power, and inside moves are a must for any defensive lineman. He reminds me of Mario Williams whenever he was at North Carolina State. There's a guy that he reverse pancakes offensive lineman into a quarterback. You know, that's every offensive lineman's worst nightmare. He's in for a big season in Knoxville, Tennessee. Knoxville is going to have a cow having a guy like Pierce, who may be the best defensive player since John Henderson because of how dominant he is on the edge. When you drop him back into coverage, he had a pick 6 during the game against Iowa in the bowl game. This is a guy that had 52 quarterback pressures. You know, the sky's the limit. This is according to defensive coordinator Tim Banks during the spring. He's just scratching the surface. He's extremely versatile as a defensive lineman. Remember, the last time that a Tennessee player went first overall pick, that'd be Peyton Manning. So to say James Pierce might be the best prospect to come out of Tennessee since Peyton Manning is a big, big thing to believe. But make no mistake about it, James Pierce is the best defensive player in college football and in the SEC. And to me, it's not even close. That's why you're going to see the 6'5" edge rusher have a whole lot to go, have a whole lot to work on. But when it come next year, first overall pick, maybe James Pierce Jr.